Why Millennials Should Not Have Bought a Home During the Pandemic. Now, I saw this title, immediately it caught my attention. And there was a study that came out with multiple articles following it that stated that 75% of people who bought a home during the pandemic had serious regrets. And then for our generation, millennial generation, 2/3 of millennials regretted the purchase and were concerned that they either overspent or didn't do enough research prior to buying. So today, we're gonna go over what the main regrets were for people who bought during this time and what we can do so that we don't put ourselves in a position to regret a purchase like that. So the housing market went completely nuts after the pandemic. Like in California, we saw each house that would go up would have 15 to 20 offers on the home. In a lot of cases, there would be an offer that went 6 figures over the asking price. So what caused that? Why were we even seeing it? Now, when you have low supply brings demand up. Demand up brings prices up. Couple that with insanely low interest rates, all the money that we printed and gave out, which then you started seeing the rise of inflation, and people were kind of put in a tough spot. You had inflation plus demand that was driving rents up, and then at the same time, it was driving home prices to a historical high. And that was the perfect storm for kind of emotions to take over. And you saw this energy or this kind of frenzy happening where there was an urgency that I had to have a home now, no matter what, I don't care the price, I need to have it. Like they say, once the dust clears, emotions start to settle and reality kicks in. And I think that's exactly what happened or why these stats are reflecting the numbers they did. So let's go over what the regrets were so that we don't make the mistake. Number one, 40% of people regretted too much cost of maintenance. Now, this is actually a typical one because when you're renting, you're not really responsible for things that happen. In most cases, the owner pays for things that go wrong. So you're kind of only focusing on your rent. But when you buy a home, you have a whole new amount of costs. You have property tax, you have insurance, you might possibly have HOA, and then anything that goes wrong with the home, you're responsible for. All of that costs money. If you have kids like us, these kids are constantly breaking things. Ours are putting, paper towels in the toilet. That's a plumber coming out. Just last month it was raining. We had a leak in the roof all over the kitchen. So we had to have somebody come fix the roof. We also had to have somebody block off the kitchen for 2 days to dry everything out so, inside the walls weren't wet. That all costs money. Also, in a house, there's things that have a certain lifespan to them. Roof doesn't last forever. Water heater doesn't last forever. AC doesn't last forever. So you need to be prepared for these things that can go wrong. Because this was the largest regret, most likely the buyers didn't plan for these type of costs. One of the biggest things that we can do so that we don't make this mistake is have somebody qualified doing your inspection and have them looking for these big ticket items that you may need to replace, like a roof or a water heater, etc. If it's an older house, have a few $100s in cash reserves for unexpected things, like your kids putting paper towels in your toilet. It's gonna happen. Also consider that we're in an inflationary moment. Services, goods are becoming more expensive. So when you're doing your budgeting for your reserves, also consider that there's a potential for things to get more expensive in the future. Budget for it, plan for it, so that you're not shocked to the system by these additional costs. Second biggest regret is that the home was too small or lacked the desired features. Now, this one to me is 100% emotional. When you had everybody overbidding and multiple offers on each home, you started seeing, especially out here, people spending like $600,000 for a garage in a terrible location. Now, not literally a garage, but you would have never paid what people were paying for a year prior. That to me was that I need the home now no matter what energy. Now, you could have justified it by saying, you know what, I'm gonna buy this little dump and in 2 years it's gonna appreciate and I'm gonna play the game of move from this one into a bigger one, into a bigger one. Now, that's not how real estate works. Real estate doesn't always go up in the short term. There's times where it goes down. For me, and I've told this story multiple times, I bought my house in 2005. I held it for 15 years just to break even on it. So I'm not saying housing market's going to crash in 2 years. I'm not saying it's going to, but to assume that you're going to buy a home and it's going to appreciate in 2 years or even 5, that's a massive speculation. For the location part, or being upset with the location of the property, this is actually becoming a little bit bigger of a challenge. And I think it's because we're seeing an increase in online purchases and a lot of sight unseen buying. This can be avoided. This is how. Go to the area in which you're buying a home and go in the morning, go at night, and make sure you go on a Friday or Saturday. When I bought my home, I owned my home in my 20s. We had friends over every weekend. We were partying. You want to make sure that that's not happening in the area that you're moving into, or if you don't want to live next to a skater who's having people over, know what you're getting into before you do it. The golden rule of real estate: location, location, location. Do not buy unless you know where you're buying. Number 3 was unprepared for hidden costs. I feel like we covered that in the first part, but get your inspection, budget for it, and know what's going to happen or know what your costs are going to be before moving in. So we're going to put the 4th and 5th regret together because they go hand in hand. 1, that their mortgage was too high, and 2, that interest rates were too high. Let's start with the interest part. Now, just because we're in an environment with incredibly low interest rates, that doesn't mean that you are necessarily going to qualify for the lowest interest rate possible. Typically, when you go to a lender, they have kind of a benchmark of what they're going to give you, and they're not going to bring it down unless there's another offer out there that might force them to bring it down. So what you should be doing, get a quote from one lender, take that quote to another one and see if they can beat it, and do it again and again until you get to that lowest interest rate. On the part about your mortgage being too high, this one is when emotions get involved. Now, buying a home is very different than buying an investment property, but I'm going to use the investment property as the example. When we go out to buy an investment property, there's typically a limit to where we can make an offer on something, and anything beyond that, the deal doesn't pencil. And if we ever get to that number, we walk away. There's no ifs, ands, buts about it. The deal doesn't work, we are gone. Now, for some reason, when we're buying a home, we have a tendency to talk ourselves into this is the dream home. And you know the feeling, like this is where you want to live. And you can start justifying reasons in which you should stay there or pay for whatever it takes to get in. How you avoid this: budget for your home first. And if that home goes over budget, you have to have the discipline to walk away and wait for the next one. When we don't walk away, that's when we get into this scenario where we regret our purchase. Also, remember that home ownership has additional costs like property taxes, insurance, maintenance, the things we covered. Budget for them so that you know what you can truly afford. The next biggest regret was value depreciation. 24% of people that purchased homes during the pandemic were concerned that they made a bad investment. That right there is the problem. A home is not an investment. We talk about this all the time. And this is what got me in trouble when I first bought a house, is I was told that a home was an investment. So when I purchased my house in 2005, then in 2007-8, the value went significantly down. I started getting worried. I started panicking that I made a bad investment. Then over time, my wife wanted to start doing things to the home. Every single time she wanted to do something to the home, we got in a fight because I couldn't justify the dollars that were going in because I couldn't see how I was going to get a return out of that money. That was my problem. Once I shifted kind of the mindset and stopped looking at my home as an investment and looked at it as my home, everything changed. Because there's a lot of reasons why you should buy a home. You have the freedom to do whatever you want to it. You don't have anybody that can raise rent on you, so you have a fixed living expense. Nobody can tell you that they no longer want to rent your house and now all of a sudden, you're out looking for another one. There are a lot of good reasons to do it, but if you get in the cycle of buying a home as an investment, then you start being concerned about the time in the market or the cycle in which you're buying. If you're buying a home for the real purpose of a home, it doesn't necessarily matter when in the market cycle you're actually buying. Then once you buy, if you want to invest in real estate, that's a totally different thing. Now you're buying an asset that appreciates, that's going to grow or build your wealth, that cash flows and offers tax efficiency. Buying a home that you're living in does not offer that. The last regret was not doing enough research before buying. I think we kind of covered that in this overall video. Now, with the home not being an investment, I know that's kind of a trigger topic. I want to know your opinion. Do you view your home as an investment, or do you view your home as a home? Also, our community is starting to grow. We're almost at 5,500 subscribers on our YouTube channel. That is so encouraging to see that many people come together to take the initiative to succeed financially. So we are stoked you guys are here. If you know anyone that you think would fit this community of people that want to win financially, send this video to them, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button so we trigger the YouTube algorithm. Let's keep growing, and we'll see you guys next week.